I stood there in the pouring rain, mascara streaming down my face, clothes soaked through, and a small suitcase at my feet. The massive iron gates of the Henderson estate closed behind me with a definitive clang. My own mother-in-law had just thrown me out, calling me a gold-digging nobody who wasn't worthy of her son. Little did she know, her precious Michael, my husband of just 6 months, wasn't just some wealthy heir. He was one of the richest men in the country. And he was about to show them exactly what happens when you mess with the woman he loves. I grew up in a small town where everyone knew everyone's business. My parents worked double shifts at the local factory to make ends meet, and I learned early on that nothing in life comes easy. After high school, I moved to the city with just $200 in my pocket and big dreams. I rented a tiny studio apartment and took whatever jobs I could find, waiting tables during the day and bartending at night. That's where I met him. Michael walked into the upscale bar where I worked on a Tuesday night. While other wealthy patrons barely acknowledged my existence, he looked me in the eyes when ordering his whiskey neat and actually thanked me. He came back the next night and the next. On the 4th night, he waited until my shift ended and asked if he could walk me home. There was something different about him. Beneath his expensive suit was a gentleness I couldn't explain. Our connection was immediate and intense. We talked for hours about everything. Our childhoods, our dreams, our fears. Michael listened like no one ever had before. He didn't flaunt his money, though I could tell he was comfortable. When he picked me up for dates, he drove a modest car. The only hint of wealth was his perfectly tailored suits and the way he never checked prices on menus. 2 months after we met, Michael proposed during a simple picnic in the park. I said yes without hesitation. We had a small ceremony with just my parents and his friend Benjamin in attendance. Michael said his parents were traveling abroad and couldn't make it. I didn't push. I was too happy to question anything. After the wedding, we moved into a beautiful apartment. Not extravagant, but nicer than anywhere I'd ever lived. Michael explained he worked in international business development, which meant frequent trips overseas. Sometimes he'd disappear for days or even weeks, always apologetic, always bringing me thoughtful gifts from faraway places. When I'd ask about his work, he'd smile and say it was complicated and boring. Money appeared in our account regularly, but he never wanted to discuss figures. Occasionally, he'd take urgent calls in other languages and step into another room. I trusted him completely, but I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something he wasn't telling me. Something big. Little did I know, I was about to find out just how big that something was. The invitation to dinner at Michael's parents' estate came unexpectedly after 6 months of marriage. "It's time you met them," Michael said, looking uncharacteristically nervous. We pulled up to a sprawling mansion with manicured gardens and a fountain that probably cost more than my parents' house. My stomach knotted as a uniformed butler opened the door. Eleanor and Richard Henderson stood in the marble foyer like royalty receiving a commoner. Eleanor's eyes scanned me from head to toe, lingering disapprovingly on my department store dress. Richard barely acknowledged me, focusing instead on his son. "Michael, finally decided to bring her around, have you?" The way he said "her" made me feel like an unwelcome pet. Dinner was excruciating. Every question felt like a trap. Where did I go to school? What did my parents do? Did I have any accomplishments of note? Michael squeezed my hand under the table as I answered truthfully, watching his mother's eyebrows rise higher with each response. His sister Sophia smirked into her wineglass, occasionally exchanging glances with her parents. "Michael could have married anyone," Eleanor said later that night, cornering me in the hallway. "I'm simply trying to understand what he sees in you." Her smile never reached her eyes. The next morning, Michael received a call. "I have to leave for Singapore immediately," he said, packing quickly. "Business emergency. I'll be back in a week, 2 at most." When I suggested I return home, Eleanor insisted I stay. "We should get to know each other better," she said. Michael seemed relieved, kissing me goodbye with promises to call daily. The moment his car disappeared down the driveway, everything changed. I was moved from the guest suite to a tiny room near the servants' quarters. Eleanor suggested I help the housekeeper with chores since I was used to that sort of thing. Richard ignored me completely, while Sophia made cutting remarks about my clothes, my accent, even the way I held my fork. Days passed with no word from Michael. When I tried calling, it went straight to voicemail. The Hendersons' treatment worsened daily. I overheard conversations about me. How I was clearly after Michael's money. How I'd trapped him somehow. How they needed to open his eyes. 2 weeks turned into 3. I was desperate, alone, and increasingly afraid. Then one rainy evening, I overheard Eleanor on the phone with Michael. "She's been stealing, darling. Small things at first, but Janet caught her trying to take my diamond earrings. We've been patient, but this is unacceptable." My heart stopped. It was a complete lie. I confronted her immediately, but she just smiled coldly and hung up. "Pack your things," she said. "Your little charade is over." "I never stole anything," I shouted, trembling with rage and disbelief as Eleanor calmly sipped her tea in the sitting room. Richard and Sophia stood nearby, arms crossed, faces impassive. "Your word against ours," Eleanor shrugged. "Who do you think Michael will believe? His family of 28 years or the bartender he married after knowing for 2 months? Richard finally spoke. "We've investigated you, Kiana. Your family's debt, your failed attempt at community college, your string of dead-end jobs. What exactly did you bring to this marriage besides your obvious attributes?" His gaze made me feel naked, exposed. "I love him," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. Sophia laughed harshly. "How convenient that you fell in love with someone from one of the wealthiest families in the state." "Wealthiest families?" I repeated, confused. "Michael had money, yes, but he lived modestly. We had a nice apartment, but nothing extravagant." Eleanor's eyes widened momentarily before she composed herself. "Don't play dumb. You knew exactly what you were doing." Within an hour, security escorted me out. The rain soaked through my clothes as I stood at the gates, clutching my hastily packed suitcase. They'd taken my phone, given me $100 cash, and told me never to contact Michael again. "He'll be informed of your true nature when he returns," were Eleanor's parting words. I found a cheap motel 20 miles away, paid for 3 nights, and collapsed on the bed. How had everything gone so wrong? Would Michael really believe their lies? And what did they mean about being one of the wealthiest families? Michael had never mentioned significant family money. As I lay there, heartbroken and confused, I realized how little I actually knew about my husband's life before me. The mysterious business trips, the vague explanations, the absent family, it all suddenly seemed suspicious. Had I been naive? Was our entire relationship built on lies? I fell into an exhausted sleep only to be awakened by a pounding on my door at 3 a.m. Terrified, I peeked through the curtains to see a familiar silhouette illuminated by the motel's flickering neon sign. Michael. I opened the door slowly, unsure what to expect. Michael stood there, soaking wet, his usually perfect appearance disheveled. "Kiana," he breathed, relief washing over his face. Before I could speak, he pulled me into his arms. "I've been looking everywhere for you." Inside the dingy motel room, Michael paced frantically. "Benjamin tracked you down. I came as soon as I heard." His eyes were wild with a mixture of fury and anguish. "My mother called with some ridiculous story about you stealing, but I knew immediately it was a lie. When I couldn't reach you, I feared the worst." "They said you were from one of the wealthiest families in the state," I said quietly. "But that's not true, is it? That's not who you are." Michael sank onto the bed, running his hands through his wet hair. "No," he admitted. "That's not who I am. I'm much more than that." He pulled out his laptop and opened it, turning the screen toward me. News articles, financial reports, Forbes listings, all featuring Michael's face. Headlines proclaimed him tech's youngest billionaire and the hidden giant of Silicon Valley. "I'm not worth millions, Kiana. I'm worth billions." His voice was soft, almost apologetic. "My parents aren't wealthy. They're comfortable, upper middle class. The mansion, the staff, all of it was mine. I let them live there, play the part of the wealthy family." I stared at him speechless. I made my first million at 19 with a software patent. By 25, I had built and sold 3 companies. Now I run a global investment firm that operates mostly in Asia. He took my hands. I kept it from you because everyone I've ever dated wanted me for my money. When I met you, I wanted to be loved for myself. Why did you let me stay with your family? Why did they treat me like that? They've always been bitter about my success. They resent depending on me. He looked away. I thought they'd be kind to you while I was gone. I was wrong, and I'm so sorry. Hours passed as Michael revealed the truth about his life, the private jets, the homes around the world, the billions in assets. Dawn was breaking when he finally asked, "Can you forgive me for not telling you the truth? For putting you through this?" I looked at my husband, truly seeing him for the first time. I married you, not your money. But no more secrets, Michael. No more lies. No more secrets, he promised, pulling me close. And as for my family, they'll never hurt you again. The black SUV pulled up to the Henderson mansion at precisely 9 a.m. Michael helped me out, his hand firmly at the small of my back as we walked to the front door. This time, no butler answered. Michael used his own key. Eleanor, Richard, and Sophia were having breakfast in the sunny dining room, their expressions turning from shock to calculated pleasantness when they saw Michael. Then they noticed me beside him. "Michael, darling, there's been a misunderstanding," Eleanor began. "Stop." Michael's voice was quiet but had an edge I'd never heard before. "I know exactly what happened. The security cameras I installed throughout the house recorded everything. The color drained from all 3 faces. You lied to my wife. You humiliated her. You threw her out with nothing but the clothes on her back and fabricated stories about theft. Each word was measured, precise. And worst of all, you did it because you thought she wasn't good enough, not wealthy enough, not from the right family." Richard attempted to interject, but Michael raised his hand. "This house isn't yours. The cars, the staff, the vacations, none of it is yours. It's mine. I allowed you to live here because despite your flaws, you're my family. But that ends today." He placed a folder on the table. "Inside are details of the accounts I've set up for each of you. Enough to live comfortably, but not extravagantly. You have 30 days to find new accommodations." The stunned silence was broken by Sophia's sob. "You're choosing her over your own family." "I'm choosing kindness over cruelty," Michael replied. "I'm choosing love over pretense. Kiana saw value in me when she believed I had nothing. What does that say about her? What does your behavior say about you?" We left them there, amidst the ruins of their privilege. As we drove away, I asked Michael if he was sure about his decision. "Family isn't just blood," he said simply. "It's who treats you with love and respect." 6 months later, we moved into our new home. Smaller than the mansion, but warm and filled with light. Michael cut back on his travel, building a team he could trust to handle overseas operations. We started a foundation supporting first-generation college students from low-income backgrounds. Eleanor eventually called to apologize, though it felt more like a bid to regain access to Michael's wealth. Richard never reached out, but Sophia showed up one day, genuinely remorseful. Over time, she became a real sister to me. As for Michael and me, we built the life we wanted, one based on honesty, mutual respect, and the knowledge that true worth has nothing to do with money. Sometimes the simplest things are the most valuable, like a man who loves you for exactly who you are, and a woman who loved him before she knew he could give her the world. That's my story, from being thrown out in the rain to discovering the truth about the man I married. Life doesn't always give us what we expect, but sometimes what we need finds us anyway. If my journey resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you won't miss my next video. Have you ever misjudged someone or been misjudged yourself? Share your experiences in the comments below. Remember, appearances can be deceiving, but true character always reveals itself in time. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Until next time, this is Kiana, reminding you that your worth isn't determined by your wealth, but by the love you give and receive.